This is bad. Around a month ago, one of my pals on TikTok, Enric, hosted an art competition after hitting 100k, and he personally asked me to join. No theme, no tracing, no AI, just pure art. The competition started on the 4th of January and ended on the 20th of February, giving us 1.5 months to work with. But in classic Lewix art fashion, I was busy doing other things. And slowly but surely, the time was ticking down. Oh shit! But even with this time loss, I mean, this should be easy, right? Considering we are going up against TikTok kids.
Foreshadowing is a narrative device.
So let's see if we can destroy these kids in 3 days. Definitely not a sentence I thought I'd ever utter in my life. Here's a little fun fact. Before I started drawing more realistic characters, I actually began with comics. Really bad ones. At first I was drawing silly little cartoony comics, and then I slowly but surely started trying my hand at more complex Marvel and DC style characters, getting better year after year in the comic book style. So I thought, I'd take another stab at it. Ow. The character I decided to draw was Doctor Doom. The reason I decided to draw him instead of any other character is because of Avengers Doomsday, the newest Marvel movie on the horizon. Although I could have taken the easy route and just drawn the mask like we see in the trailers, I thought that would be a bit boring. So instead I designed my own version, which is what you see right here. These are called thumbnail sketches. With these you can quickly go through ideas and designs without any permanent decisions. And after some trial and error, I decided on a sharper look, using more angular features, along with a slightly more stylized forehead. I also had to figure out things like the hands and the robe, but those were actually much simpler compared to designing the mask. And with a few final details, and a quick sketch for the pose, the idea was set in stone. So let's see if my comic skills still hold up. Normally, the sketching stage is pretty chill for me, but since we'll most likely have to do both the sketching and the inking in one day, it definitely made things a lot more stressful. And I had to take into account for something special I had planned later, but you'll just have to stick around for that if you want to see it. Utilizing the thumbnail sketches we made, I could quickly block in the pose and proportions, saving us some time. Since Mr. Doom here is such an incredibly evil character, I decided to put him in a more menacing pose, reaching straight out of the page towards you. But this pose was actually pretty difficult, because it involved a lot of foreshortening in the arm. Foreshorten, to portray or show an object or view as closer than it is or having less depth or distance, as an effect of perspective or the angle of vision. To avoid any little uh-ohs or oopsies in this process, I used a small little trick. If you take a picture of your drawing and flip it horizontally, it becomes much easier to spot errors in proportions or perspective. I basically abused this trick until everything looked just right, leaving only the shadows to add, completing the sketch. Which meant it was time for the next step, inking. You might have noticed something missing. The footage where I drew the line art. Sadly enough though, I don't have it. And no, it's not because it's corrupted or anything. I just forgot to film it. Yep. But that does leave us with more time to talk about the shading. In comics, shading is usually done with solid black areas and hatching to create gradient shadows. I've already covered these basics in a previous video, so instead I thought I'd go a bit deeper into hatching itself. Like I said, it's often used to create gradient shadows, but you can actually do a lot more with it. To start with, the tools I use are a set of brushes and a set of fine liners, both with different thicknesses. This difference is important because with it you can show different textures, gradients, and levels of detail. For smaller details and more important areas like the glove and the mask, I switch over to my fine liners. And for the less important areas, like the hood, I do hatching with my brushes. I also use hatching to add texture. For example, you can see here on the glove and the mask, where I add small little scattered lines to create spots and grime, which helps show aging and detail. Talking about the glove and the mask, for the metal parts of the mask and the glove, I use a specific shading pattern that helps sell that shiny reflective surface. I shade the darker areas, like I usually would, but leave parts of the edges lighter to suggest reflections. Metal can be tricky to draw, but with this trick it's really easy to pull off. And if you ever need a reference for reflective material, actually, no joke, The metal pipe meme is actually pretty useful. But there's one more tool I like to use at the end, and that's this white gel pen. With it I got into the larger black shapes to create an almost reverse hatching effect, building the transition the other way around, like you can see here with the arm and the glove. I also use it for tiny details like scratches, and even to fix small mistakes. After a few hours, you end up with the completed drawing. But like I said earlier, we're doing something more, and that starts with scanning the artwork. Oh yeah! Nice. Oh! After importing the drawing in Clip Studio Paint and naming it something very appropriate, we've got ourselves a drawing to paint. But that isn't the special part I promised you guys. Obviously it's going to be very stylistic. I love the artist Riccardo Fredarici, I think he's called, maybe Riccardo Linguini, I don't know. But he makes some really cool like comic book art that's just realistic. His color usage is also just it's so good. And I'm going to color this sucker in using a bit of his like style, you know? The main colors for the character would obviously be green with a bit of turquoise, and finally magenta and yellowy stuff. This actually follows a good general guideline for character design. Make about 60 to 70% of your character one color, 20 to 30% another color, and around 10% an accent color. This helps your character look more cohesive and prevents what I like to call a color bomb. Of course, you can still break these rules a little. For example, in my coloring, the secondary colors are yellow and magenta. But in this case, the magenta is caused by lighting, rather than the actual color of the character. So the yellow still stands. And the tiny spots of red make up far less than 10%, so they're basically inconsequential. With the colors down, I had to start thinking about lighting. Shit. Our little Dr. Doom here has two light sources. One main light that's slightly above and facing towards us, here, and another one that's a bit lower and further away, here, creating the magenta rim light. And from here on, this is where things started going slightly wrong. I did make one rather big blunder that I only realized about 3 hours later. The colors were flat. When colors look flat, it basically means they all have very similar values, which makes the drawing look less three-dimensional, hence the word flat. There was an easy way to fix this though, but for some reason I never got around to it, and I really couldn't tell you why. One of the trickiest parts of this process was the metal. Even though I had already shaded it earlier, now I had to shade it again, but with colors. And honestly, it just gave me a bit of a headache. It also didn't help that I used way too much green, which, as you can see, made the mask look unsettling. But not in a good way. This is actually where I really wanted to implement my little special technique I'd been saving this whole time. But the oddest thing happened, and I think I forgot or something, I don't know. Another thing that looked a bit off was the glove. I added a rim light to those parts, but there wasn't actually anything in the scene causing that light. The main light source is a big diffuse light that wasn't green, and the secondary light source that was down below also wasn't green. Yep. I had this whole plan to add some cool effects like Dr. Doom using magic that would light up the whole painting and give this cool aesthetic. But for the life of me, I couldn't figure out why I never got around to it. By this point though, it was already well past midnight and I was getting pretty EP. So instead of fixing all my mistakes, I tried to hide them by adding some texture and a bit of text in the background to distract from the main character. But I mean, come on. I'm going up against TikTok kids. They can't even draw that well. This should be a walk in the park, right? Come on. So satisfied with what I had made, I called it a day and submitted the artwork. Yeah. I got 7th. No joke, I heavily underestimated the competition. Even saying heavily underestimated doesn't do it justice. I mean, just look at these masterpieces. The lighting, the coloring, everything is done so well. And that's just an honorable mention. Like, what the fuck? I mean, come on, just look at 4th place. That looks so good. Obviously, I didn't stand a chance. Not with my mistake-riddled toilet paper. It could never take the 1st place spot. You might take the win this time, TikTok artists. You all deserved it. But you know what? It doesn't end here. If this drawing isn't good enough for a TikTok art competition, then it definitely isn't good enough for you guys. And that's a problem. Because as you might know, I like to turn my drawings into posters for you guys. Lewixart.com, link in the description. And this would never make it into the shop. I won't yield. I will race draw until I create a masterpiece. A masterpiece worthy of that #1 spot. And all of your validation. And we'll even implement the special technique. Ladies, gentlemen, and artists, let's get to work. The absolute first thing on the agenda was fixing my mistakes, starting with the mask. Like I said before, the colors were way too green and saturated, which I fixed by lowering the saturation and slightly lowering the brightness. Strangely enough, this gave the mask a more bluish feel, which was a bit unexpected. Then I immediately started implementing the special technique. Traditionally, when coloring comics, you only color underneath the inks, creating gradients, form and values. But here's where we can be a bit cheeky. By choosing certain areas where we paint over the inks, we can add a bunch of different textures and effects. It can also help clean up some areas to make them look more polished. I especially use this technique on the right side of the mask, and in doing so I also solved another problem, the drawing looking flat. By darkening the right side, the lighting suddenly became much clearer, bringing out the three-dimensional form. During this process, I had to paint over quite a lot of the inks. That might sound bad to some of you, but it actually had a benefit: blurring. By removing some of the sharp ink lines, that side of the face became slightly blurry. Sharp edges attract attention, soft edges fade into the background. Thus your attention gets pushed even more towards the right side. And just with these changes alone, the painting had already improved by like 10 times. But I'm not even close to finished. There was only one main issue left: the strange glove highlights. But this might actually end up becoming the absolute coolest feature. Not yet though. Right now it still looks kinda eh. But just wait. We're adding magic. Painting magic is surprisingly difficult, and my first attempt ended in a disaster. Instead of the bubbly idea, I decided to go with a more fiery effect. I had actually practiced painting fire in another video, where I learned digital painting, which you should definitely watch after this one. I'll link it in the description. And while you're there, subscribe. For the fire, I used the green color scheme, going from a whitish lime to a darker green. A very important thing here was flow, making the flames blend naturally into each other and curving them in a specific pattern. Honestly, it already looked pretty amazing. But you know what would make it even better? Animals. Angry animals. Yes, I thought it would be cool to add some extra energy to the flames by hiding angry animals with large teeth inside them. The way I did this was by photo bashing. You just pick some images online and edit them into your drawing. And I did this for 5 animals. And then I scrapped it, because it looked terrible.
You're a fucking idiot.
This dog looked alright though, so I decided to add another one so he wouldn't be lonely. And finally, the text. I wanted to add big, imposing words at the top saying Dr. Doom, along with some extra details to make the lettering feel a bit fancy and glowy, tying the entire drawing together. Ladies, gentlemen, and artists, it's finished. I present to you the master of Latveria, Dr. Doom. Subscribe. Thank you for making it to the end of the video. I'm curious to know what you guys think. Do you think I managed to reach the number 1 spot or not? Leave a comment down below, I'll have a look at all of them. And you can watch another one of my videos right here, where I learned digital painting in 1 day. I like Nutella. And with that, I'll end the video. Goodbye!